Hello, it's Female Bacon here. Welcome back, and we are going to be talking about Avowed today. Now, I'm not really one to usually make guides for videos and stuff like that. However, I just have been watching the discourse around the game over this weekend, which has been just completely unhinged and off the rails. I've watched a lot of reviews about the game, even from people that I would say are like really good reviewers and stuff, who I don't think maybe gave a completely objective take on some of the aspects of the game. So my goal here really is just, help you out as a kind of a starting guide for the game, to give you some ideas. There's, not the only one out there. Lots of guides about this, but I kind of just want to add to a more factual, objective discussion about the game and what to expect, first and foremost here. So I guess that's the first thing. Just rip off the Band-Aid on this subject here. This game is primarily an action, exploration, and combat game. It has influences from a lot of different games. It has influences from games like Skyrim, of course, Fallout. Mostly, though, I would say it's inspired by Outer Worlds more than anything. So if you enjoyed Outer Worlds and more of that like mid-tier Bethesda experience, I mean, that's what this is going to be a lot closer to. So I would kind of remove the Skyrim from your mind and think more Outer Worlds if you played Outer Worlds. It has elements of games like Dishonored. I mean, you can see I'm holding pistols currently, kind of unique for an RPG like this, that you can just go full dual pistol gunslinger type of gameplay. It has elements of even like ARPGs like Diablo a little bit, not like crazy or anything like that, but you might pick up on some of that. It has a much more limited and focused skill tree. And it does want you to kind of experiment with a variety of like different builds. It's definitely not a game that focuses a ton on class fantasy that a way like, Baldur's Gate 3 would or something like that. It's honestly, in a weird kind of way, this is almost like a character action game, just being that you can customize and make your own unique character, basically. But yeah, this is primarily an action exploration combat game, first and foremost. So if you're not in for that kind of ride, you might not be interested in it. Personally, where I'm coming from, I'll just be straight up transparent and upfront. I've been about 25 hours into the game. I'm having a really good time with it. I think it's actually a really decent game. And by the end of the year, when I'm thinking about my top 10, 20 games of the year, this is going to be in that list 100%. It's probably not going to be my number one game necessarily, but I'll be thinking about my experiences with this game come the end of the year and that I really enjoyed it 100%. So anyways, let's get into some of the basic tips and tricks that I have for you here. So first thing that you probably want to do when you boot up the game is, like any game, go to your settings. And you might want to check out all the game settings here. I'm not going to go through them all by any means, but one I'll just point out, there is a toggle mode for crouch and sprint. So you might prefer that off or, off or on. I just use toggle. I've been finding that it to be fine because you do have to kind of run long distances across the world and that kind of thing. Toggle mode for crouch I've been using hasn't been an issue either. It would probably be fine to do press and hold for this as well, but just wanted to point that out to you. You might find the toggle mode to be a little strange to use. I've been finding it to be generally fine. You can turn a third-person view on and off. And I'll show you that actually after. There, you can actually go in first person or you can go in third person view. Some people do not like the head bobbing, so I'll show you. So as you're running through the world, you can see I'm bobbing. You can see my guns are shaking like that. If you don't like that, you can actually turn that off, and apparently people really appreciate that option there. And yeah, beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here. Actually, I will say this game has a great accessibility menu. There is so many options for things that you can turn on and off and really customize your experience in lots of different ways. So I would say, before you even start playing the game, maybe just go through this menu, check it out, and decide what you want to change to customize your experience, right? I should clarify as well, I'm playing on keyboard and mouse. I haven't played on controller, so I can't really speak to that too much. But yeah, you can customize your controls for both of those right off the bat and everything. I'm trying to think if I don't know if there is anything I really changed, honestly. I honestly don't think I changed anything from the default settings in the game, the UI, or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I haven't changed anything from the default, and I haven't personally had any issues, but yeah, lots of options here. So really, really basic stuff. One thing that is really, really freaking sweet about this game is when you're running, there's no stamina meter. You can jump, you can run, you can also parkour on surfaces like this. And it's actually quite fun because they'll give you big structures, like, okay, we're looking at this town, you'll be able to, like, kind of parkour your way through the town. There is secrets and treasure and loot everywhere. You can see this tower off in the distance. That's like a whole parkour section to climb up there. So that's pretty fun. Once you actually engage in combat, okay, so here, if you can dodge with spacebar. I don't know what it is on controller. It's probably the B button, but correct me if I'm wrong. But you can dodge. If you press either back or to the side, and you press the jump button, and so that actually does have a stamina meter. You can see that there, right? The white bar on my screen. It's depleting as I'm dodging. So just watch that. It can actually get pretty low pretty quickly. The other thing I'd mention, as you're using your weapons, right? As you're using your weapons, you will see that stamina bar depleting. So just be very conscious of that. That can deplete extremely quickly. It's kind of, I guess Souls-esque in that way, and that stamina bar is really big, important thing to manage when you're actually in combat. The other thing I had mentioned, so I'm in first-person view right now. I've been playing mostly in first person, but I've also played a bit in third person. So just check out your controls. You can toggle that, and I actually do find third person to be actually useful and valuable in some larger combat encounters, especially when there's a lot of enemies around. I don't know how it really works for melee, but as a dual pistol wielder, which is my primary build that I'm going with, it's actually pretty easy to do third-person mode. I really don't find it too bad. I guess I'll mention this since I have my weapons out. So when you have your weapons out, you can hold down the attack button. It will charge. You can get a charge attack. Interesting with melee weapons, you can only charge one at a time. So I can't charge both my dagger and my sword. I can only charge one. But you can just click quickly between the two. And I can get an effect like this if I'm dual wielding. Okay? I haven't played too much with the shield, but you can also equip a shield. There's a parry option as well. But yeah, I haven't really played with the parrying stuff at all, but that's a whole skill tree unto itself. But there's parry options and shields and all that kind of stuff. Now, what's cool, though, if you do double pistols, you can actually charge attack both of those at the same time. So you can do some massive DPS with dual charge pistols if you're into that kind of thing. So pretty cool. Anyways, just some tips and tricks on that one there. Next thing, if you look at my UI at the bottom, you will see in the middle of the screen at the very bottom, I've got Q as an option, and it's a throwable. So you can actually equip grenades to the Q button or whatever it is on controller, and you can throw a grenade. Now, you can use these in combat. However, my advice to you is to avoid using your grenades for combat. They don't actually do very much damage to enemies, and they are more useful to use around the environment. You're going to find destructible walls all over the environment. Some are weak to regular grenades. Some are weak to ice grenades. Some are weak to fire grenades. Some are weak to electric. And that's when you'll actually find them to be more valuable. There's going to be like all sorts of kind of like, not full-on puzzles per se, but exploration elements where you have to kind of figure out how to maneuver through a dungeon, something like that, and you'll have to use your consumables. You can also just use your abilities from your weapons. So, for example, I've got a pistol in my right hand here that shoots an electric bolt. Well, that actually does work the exact same way that my grenades work. So let me show you that. So if I go to my inventory, here's my loadout, right? Here's the other thing too, right? So you can actually, in your weapons category here, you can have your primary weapons, And you can switch over to your alt weapons. So I've got a build for pistols. That's my primary. And my secondary, I've got my melee build, okay? I do recommend playing around with this, seeing what you like. You probably don't want to go like full ranged or full melee. You probably want to have options for both. Some enemies are just much easier to engage from a ranged perspective. Start off the battle like that, and then, you know, go into your melee options, okay? But at the bottom here, you will see your grenades. Now, you can pick up several different types of grenades. Like I said, there's electric, there's soul pod, there's grenade, and there's fire. Okay. Fire will, you know, it'll basically tell you. You'll get used to the UI indicator when you come into a wall. But so let's take a look at that. Right, you just click on it. Now we equips our, in this case, fire grenade. Boom, that does fire damage. Okay. So again, you can use this on enemies, and it can be useful, but there's better ways to manage that. Oh, something else I'll show you here. So this is the ice one. Something I'll show you here, and this is, okay, very, 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 very light spoiler, I will say. Nothing too serious. And apologies, my dog's barking in the background. But if you throw this ice grenade at the water, it creates a little platform that you can actually step on. And this one's not letting me actually step on it, I think because it's too shallow here maybe. But you will run into situations where you're going to have to platform across the water, and you can easily do that with an ice grenade. But you can also do it, and actually, sorry, let me go back here. Another thing I highly recommend is having a little bit of magic goes a long way. So once you actually start unlocking your abilities, so you can choose, there's going to be 4 different classes you can play around with, or 3 different classes, I should say. Fighter, Ranger, and Wizard. These are kind of your primary classes. And I would recommend investing at least into the ice mechanic, these chill blades. I've only put 1 point into chill blades. That's been honestly enough. I haven't needed any more than that. Maybe as I get deeper and deeper into the game, perhaps I will upgrade it, but really it's good for a couple things. So one is anything that does these elemental damage types, like ice, electricity, they will also fulfill the role of the grenades. So there you go. So you see I used my ice power. It creates a platform like that. Okay? There's a little bit of cooldown on it. It costs you some magic ability, but it doesn't cost much to do it. If you look at your magic abilities, there's also a fire one. There's an electricity one. So those are your 3 main elements. The other reason that I recommend this is that status effects in this game are extremely powerful. The ice ability freezes a ton of different types of enemies, especially humanoid types of enemies. It will like almost automatically freeze them, or at least within a shot or 2, and that can like completely immobilize an enemy. You can blow them up with your guns after that or whatever. So really helps in combat. But I would say, like I say, just a little bit of magic goes a long way. I would recommend investing at least into the ice one. That's kind of the only one I found that I've needed. Shock is pretty good too. Shock can immobilize enemies. My gun in my right hand here does shock damage. So that's the other thing, is some weapons will also just do elemental damage. I've got, you know, my melee weapons here. Both of my melee weapons do fire damage. So some enemies will be weaker to fire than others. And so you'll have to just experiment around with that. But the more kind of things that you can have on your person to expand your ability to do elemental damage is really, really super useful. So I do highly recommend having a variety of elemental status effects and damage types that you can do. Will make things a lot easier for you. The other thing I'll show you here is you have godlike powers, okay? So I don't want to spoil any of these for you. One's an attack, one's a heal. These are like superpowers, basically. Your character is what is called a godlike. The only thing I'm just going to mention about these abilities is that you can easily miss them in the environment. They are hidden in the environment. You kind of start off with one that just comes with you, as part of your character loadout when you start the game. The remainder so far, well, there's exceptions to that. There are story moments where you'll unlock new godlike powers, but that is not the way you're going to find the majority of them. You're going to find the majority of the godlike powers from just exploring the world, okay? So just be aware of that. And that's the other thing. Exploration in this game, absolutely. That's what this game's about, okay? So if you're not here to explore and you're going to mainline this game, I don't know. Might not be worth playing the game, because 90% of the fun and experience and just your ability to level up and unlock stuff and do side content, that's what this game is about. That's where this game really shines. And this is not a game you want to main path. This is like more of a slow burn game. Take your time. Do as much exploration as you can. The world is really beautiful. Feels really good to explore. So don't make sure that you don't miss out on that. Okay. Oh, and something else I forgot to mention. There's also a slide. Forgot to mention that as well. So when you're running, if you hit, in this case, control, but whatever, again, check your controller settings. You can do a slide. There's actually abilities that you can get that even damage enemies when you're sliding. So, this is pretty basic stuff here. You'll figure this out, I think, right off the bat. Another thing I should mention, there's no ammo. There's no ammo in this game. So when you get your guns, so I've got my guns. If you're using a bow, for example, you don't actually have to craft or make ammo or anything like that. That is a really nice quality of life feature that I really, really, really love. It's just awesome. That's like the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I want to see included. Now, there's examples where that might be fine. Okay, I'm not saying they should do that in every game. Don't take me out of context. But because there's so much combat-focused stuff in this game, it really works well here. It would be really annoying to craft ammo in this game, trust me. Next thing that I want to mention. Merchants are very, very, very important, okay? And let me show you why. So if we go to one.
Time to resupply.
So let's see what you have for sale. And they're going to sell a bunch of different stuff. Now, a lot of times, they're going to sell legendary gear. So go to every merchant and check out what they sell for their legendary gear, because I have found some of the best items being sold at merchants. Sometimes they will sell treasure maps, which are literally just like a whole quest that you can do. Okay, so make sure to purchase those treasure maps. Make sure to go to every merchant and purchase every single lockpick that you can. There is chests everywhere in this world, and a lot of them are going to require lockpicks to open those chests. So make sure that you are buying those lockpicks. Okay. Next thing I will mention, no stealing mechanic in this game. Let's see if there's an example of that here. So, I don't know if there's any items here, but I think you know what I'm saying. If you think back to your Skyrim days or whatever. Okay, here's an example, right? So this guy's got a couple apples here. He's standing right here. You can just pick those up. Okay, you're not going to go to jail. Nobody's going to get mad at you. It's not going to disrupt your gameplay or anything like that. You can just pick up items. No stealing mechanic at all. Just pick up every item you find. And that's the other thing. Literally pick up every single item that you can possibly find in the game. Okay. Next thing. And on that same note, you can't kill anybody you want to as well. Okay. There's only specific enemies. The enemies will be labeled that you can kill. But yeah, you can't just go on like a killing spree or anything like that, like you can in Fallout. It really doesn't. The game's not designed in that way, and it is what it is, right? Maybe you want to be able to kill everybody. I know. I wish I could kill everybody, but no, it's not that type of game. So just be aware of that. The other thing, journal. Okay. So your journal, I'll show you quickly here. And some very, very, very mild spoilers. Okay, so just be aware of that. The journal here, let's say we go to Dawn Shore, right? And I don't know why for me, like I just, The journal didn't make 100% sense to me when I started. So just pick your side quest. You literally just double click it. It comes up with a little marker on it here. You can see it's this little notch here. Okay. This is one of the main quests that you're going to find right early on in the beginning of the game. So don't worry. No, you're not, I'm not spoiling anything major here for you. This is pretty minor quest here. And then you'll just open up your map. And you'll find, okay, and in this case, actually, this is actually a searching for the item quest, so actually you won't see a marker here in this case. But yeah, that marker will just pop up on your map here, and it'll look like that. And then you just have to go, and it'll actually, if you look in the top left-hand of the screen, there is a compass there, and the compass will also show it on there as well, which kind of helps. I actually don't like the compass in the game that much. I don't find it to be super useful. I wish it would kind of actually show the environment instead of just like a blue screen with like icons on it. So, but it will help you guide you to your quest if you have it tracked on, and you can see it. Okay. What else can I tell you here? Oh yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the camp. So here we've got a camp, and actually I'm going to go up north here to a different camp. I'm going to go to this one here. So again, if you're worried about very mild spoilers, don't watch this video, please. So let's go to this camp. So some things you can do here. You can talk to your allies. If they have a exclamation mark above their head, that means that they have some kind of dialogue that they want to share with you, okay? So they'll have like some kind of little story sequence. It's usually nothing major, honestly. And then you can do a few things here. You can stash items, which is quite nice. So you can see I've got a couple items here over in my chest, and this is all my inventory. You can stash those over into your party stash. If you're like want to keep an item that you don't want to carry around with you, it's like too heavy or causes over encumbrance for you, whatever. The one you're going to be using most of the time though is this workbench. This is where you can upgrade your items. Very, very, very important that you're constantly upgrading your items all the time, okay? So if you look here, the ones that are highlighted in white, I can upgrade these, right? So if we look last light of day, this one here, steel chunk, highly as talon. So that's what I need to upgrade it. It will also show you where you're at in the actual skill tree or upgrade tree, I should say. So let's say we take a look at the common sword. The common sword is like, the worst item in the game. It's a level 1 common. Okay, so here's your upgrade path here. And as you're going along, so just make sure you take a look at this because it will tell you literally everything you need for these upgrade paths. Okay. And this one can only be upgraded to a maximum of superb, which is kind of interesting. Let's take a look at the Last Light of Day, which is a legendary unique sword. This one, if you notice, we can upgrade it from common and all the way up to legendary status. So my advice to you, you do want to focus on trying to get unique weapons, okay? If you're working on just blues or commons, all right, things like that, as you can see, blue, common, they cannot be upgraded to legendary. So, in the long run, not really going to be worth it. It's fine when you're kind of starting off if you just want to have one of these items with you just because, because that's what you have. That's fine. But you are going to start finding legendary gear right away. Like I said, merchants sell it. So keep your eyes out for it. Explore the world. Get as much of this legendary gear as you can because you can upgrade it so much further. Okay? Really important. Upgrade materials. One thing I've seen, common misconception about the game. It seems like a lot of people, well, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot of people. I saw a couple reviewers say that they were having trouble managing their upgrade to crafting items. Haven't found that issue myself. I've been exploring the world, doing side quests as I've come across them, and using, so you have two options here, right? You can upgrade your weapon. Okay, so let me show you actually. Let's just click on that. So let's say I want to upgrade the sword. Do you want to upgrade? So it says fine quality, right? So I've got fine, 1, 2, 3. That's going to impact the level of the weapon. So we're going to upgrade it. Now it's a fine quality. Now the other thing I should mention is if you want to move it from common to fine to exceptional to superb, There's going to be a little node in the center here, and it's going to require Aedra to upgrade it, okay? Collect all the awakened Aedra that you possibly can. Very, very valuable resource. As you continue through the game, that's going to start to change into some other different types of Aedra and some other stuff that you need, okay? But early on, you really want to focus on getting this awakened Aedra so that you can get your weapons up to the exceptional level and be prepared for, you know, essentially the middle of the game, late stages of the game, that kind of stuff, okay? You'll find Awakened Aedra, you know, you're going to come across it just exploring again, it's fairly common, but it's not super common, so you are going to have to also craft it as well, okay? So, in this menu, make sure that you are crafting this stuff, always, anytime you're coming to upgrade your weapons. Before you even start upgrading, go to your crafting menu. Craft everything you can here. Okay, so we're going to do that. Make sure you're crafting all this stuff all the time. And so in this case, you know, it still didn't leave us with anything that we can upgrade, but it will eventually. So you can see now I have 1 out of 2 of this Admess wort because we just crafted one as an example. All right. So again, once you come to your blacksmith, go to your crafting, craft all your stuff, look at your upgrades, you know, upgrade what you can, and pay attention to what materials you need and so on. I promise you, you do not ever, at least for me, I've never had to go back to a previous area to go farm materials or anything like that. You will also find more advanced materials, and there's also an option here. So not only can you craft an advanced material, you can also break down an existing material. So we made that Admess wort, but let's say, oh, you know what? I got this item, but I need like the lower level crafting material. You can just, well, when you get into later sections of the game, I'll just tell you, you're going to find Admess wort all over the place, and we can break this down. And boom, suddenly we have Elias Talon again. So let's go back to this. So now let's see that. We've got Admess wort, so we can craft it again. All right. Break down. Break it down. Boom. So I hope that makes sense. But just play around in here. Look around in here. I think you'll figure it out pretty quick. But just make sure you're crafting and taking advantage of the full breadth of this menu. I promise you, as long as you're exploring and doing side quests, you're not going to need to go back and find crafting. You're not going to struggle for crafting materials. You're going to be able to keep up with the levels. The other thing I'll mention, these qualities of grades of weapon, and again, this applies to your armor as well. I should mention, actually, the only things you have to upgrade are your weapons and your primary armor, okay? You do get boots and you do get gloves. Those are non-upgradable. And they also don't take up any weight in your stash. I'll show you that in a second. But these whatever you want to call it, qualities, right? Common, fine, exceptional, superb. They directly relate to an enemy's level. Okay? And then you're like, what does that mean? Oh, what do you mean it directly relates to an enemy's level? Let me show you what I mean by that. It's a little hard to understand unless... And I had to go find an enemy. So another thing I'll mention here while we're looking at this. Once you kill an enemy, they are dead. Enemies stay dead. They do not come back. So in my opinion, it's best to, as you're going through areas, you want to kind of meticulously clear out areas, explore everything you can, because you don't really want to go back, okay? So if you look here, here's a phantom, okay? You see the phantom there? To the left of his health bar, there is a green 1. Well, what does that mean? That's the level of the enemy. So this enemy is very weak, okay? Now let's go back. So you can see here, we've got a level 3 fine quality sword. Okay, well that's actually, let's look at our gun. This is actually a purple. So we have an exceptional quality purple. And we have a level 1, 2 fine quality fine pistol. That's what we have equipped for our guns. If we look at the enemy type, he was a level 1 common. So that's how you know whether you're kitted up for a particular enemy. Now, I'll be honest with you, you can really push it in this game. Just because an enemy is, you know, at a higher power level than you does not mean you can't take it on. They might be more beefy and take longer to kill. And interestingly, like even if they are a higher level than you, it also depends on the enemy type and stuff like that. Some are like more like glass cannon types, some are more a little bit more tanky, that kind of thing. But if you're wondering, like, okay, it's showing me that I'm too low of gear level to fight an enemy, and the way that this will be indicated is there will be actually a skull above the enemy's nameplate, or above the enemy's health bar. So it will say Phantom. There'll be a skull next to it, and there'll be 1, 2, or 3 skulls. So if there's 1 skull, that means it's a little bit higher than your power level. If 2, then even higher, and 3 is the highest. Okay, that means they're technically way outpower you. But I have been killing 3 skull enemies without that much difficulty. I think you'll find it a little bit hard early on, but once you get to like the second chapter and stuff, as long as you've been keeping on top of your upgrades, I generally don't think you're going to have that much issue with taking on 3 skull enemies. So, anyways, my point is this guy is just a level 1 common enemy. That's his level. If we look again, left of the nameplate. So what that means is he's way weaker than our weapon types are. So you see that? Just one shot to erase him. Not much to it. Let's see. So this guy here again. So he's actually a level 2. So see how he's got a 1. He's not barely doing any damage to me at all. Right? He's a much lower level than me. And so we just kill him in one shot. That's not even an issue at all. You can see my ally got frozen there. That's what frozen looks like there. Make sure you're always picking up enemy bodies and corpses. So yeah, it seems like there was a lot of confusion in some of the opening guides I've seen and stuff about like how does levels work and why am I always under leveled of an enemy? Well, it literally tells you right on the screen what those enemy levels are and how to take advantage of that. Okay. Something I was going to mention here. So weight encumbrance. So if you look here, very much, typical kind of Bethesda RPG style, it has weights. Okay. Here's my overall weight, 120. I have low weight, but I've yet to run into an issue really with weight. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is because the only things that have weight are weapons and armor. Okay? You're also going to get a bunch of gloves. You're going to get amulets and rings. As you can see, the weight is nothing. You know what else is really cool? Food. Food weighs nothing. You can have as much food as you want. We'll talk about food in a minute here. I have a lot of food. Okay. Tons of food. And it doesn't cost any weight to carry this stuff around. It's super nice. Here's the reason that weight isn't a problem. So, at any point in time, as you're out in the map, out in the world, exploring, let's say you hit your weight encumbrance maximum. You're like, oh shoot, I'm over encumbered, right? Normally in a typical Fallout or Skyrim or something, you'd have to go back to a merchant, sell your items, or just throw items on the ground. You do not have to do that here. If you look here, it actually gives you an option on keyboard. All it is you hold R down. So again, check your controller for that. But you'll see here, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it says you can stash and camp /hold breakdown. So I'm going to hold breakdown. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to destroy the weapon. It breaks it down into usable crafting material for me. So you can just do this anywhere you want, and it goes back to base. It is super nice, and you will never have to worry about your weight encumbrance. So now here I am. I'm at 35.5 out of 120, right? So just always pick up every single item you see, and once you hit your encumbrance, you might just go through and boom, 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 break those down, send it back to camp, and you're going to have all that crafting material sitting there. And then when you get back to camp, you go into your crafting section, and you craft higher grade crafting materials with all that stuff. Okay. I guess I'll show you this while we're at it. This is like in no particular order here at all. There is a wheel menu on keyboard. It's E. You can open up a wheel menu. This is super useful, more useful than it might readily appear when you first start playing the game. The first menu here is going to be all of your abilities. So it includes magic abilities, my personal magic abilities, but it also includes abilities for your allies. So I've got Kai, I've got Marius as my allies here. So you can just go here, because at the bottom of the screen you can see I only have 6 options to assign them to, right at the bottom of the screen here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can put some of these options onto your hotbar, hotbar window, whatever you want to say it. But you're not going to have room for everything. So you can also just go in here, activate it from here. However, the other thing that you're going to find super valuable is if you go to consumables. So go to consumables. And you can use, and this will also pause the game, by the way. So if you need, like, if you're in an intense battle, you need kind of like a breather. Okay, I just got to stop and get my bearings and heal up and take some potions and stuff like that. You just can go in here, pop whatever you need, and it has your potions, your essence, which refills your magic, all that kind of stuff. But the other really cool thing is it has very specific items for you. So it assigns all your health regen food items to one specific bar. So look at that. And then you can tell because it's a red apple. If you want to restore mana, you've got a purple apple. You've also got all these buff options. So here's a damage buff. Here's a damage and damage reduction buff. Here's an intellect and resolve and 10 maximum essence. And you can scroll over and it keeps going. Intellect buff. Resolve and maximum stamina, constitution and damage reduction, movement speed, and so on. Okay, so use this. The one that you're going to use all the time, constantly, like I said, elemental status effects are really, really good in this game. Grog. Craft grog, buy grog, pick up as much frickin' grog as you can possibly get. You're going to use it all the time, especially if you're on fire, if you're poisoned. Basically, any time that you have a status effect, you're going to be dropping a grog. You can easily access it from this menu, and it cures, as you can see, poison, bleed, and elemental accumulations, restores health based on the amount cured, 70% poison, bleed, and elemental damage resistance. This is like a seriously, seriously good item, okay? You also have the option of accessing it through your inventory menu here, right? It's just that this is a more tedious way to do it. Okay, so it's easy to forget that this exists, but you can scroll through and, just take a look through it. There's a bunch of options in here, okay? And even just like before you go into a big battle, you can just pull this up and just like buff a bunch of stuff and then engage in the battle. This makes it really easy, and it categorizes it in like a very straightforward manner. And you can see like, look how many items I have. Right. It's one of these games where you're always just going to have more items than you know what to do with. So go in here, and that's going to encourage you to use them, okay? It also has your throwable options in here, right? Your grenades. Forgot to mention that. It's in here as well. Okay, so you can easily select that. So there's my ice, or my electric, rather. Maybe I want fire, okay? So easy to select there. Something else I want to show you. So anytime you see one of these crystals, this is a campsite. It will automatically activate once you find one, and it will become a fast travel point on your map. Anytime that you want to travel back, just beware that anytime you use fast travel on it, it will automatically put you into camp. I kind of find that a little bit annoying because sometimes I just want to fast travel there. I don't want to go into camp, but is what it is. You can also click on the crystal like that, and you can camp. The other thing I was going to mention, you can cook at the camp. So if you go to the cauldron here where the fire is, you can cook. And you're going to have like a million recipes. So what do I have here? Grog. You can make grog. And it also uses a variety of items to make grog, which is kind of interesting. So you can choose here what your ingredient is. So in this case, okay, we want to make grog, and we can choose what we want. Okay, we have 10 apples. Oops. Let's say craft. Okay, we can craft 11 of them because we have 11 apples. But apples is not the only thing we can use to make grog. We can also use all these other items. Palm stone, spring berries, whatever. To be honest with you, you can spend a long time here crafting cooking items. my advice to you is just look up what you need, okay? Like, there's so many options in here. So you might go like, okay, so the item will tell you what it does here, right? So if we look at, I don't know, cooked lashwing, it has a heart next to it, which means it restores health. And this does 70 health regeneration. That's pretty decent, especially early on in the game. You can click on that. It looks like I can craft 2 out of 1. Boom. Craft. And there we go. We have a couple lashwings. So just go through. Some of these items you probably won't be worth crafting. Like, you know, do you want 1,000,000 cheese wedges that only restore 10 health? Probably not. But do you want some cured rusk snout loin that restores 150 health? I can make 6 of them. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. That gives a lot of health. So that's what I would just say. There's also a bunch of ones that, again, increase, like give you buffs on different stats and stuff like that. So just go through, figure out what's specific to your character. Obviously, like if you're playing a magic user, you're probably going to want items that buff intellect. If you're playing a ranged character like me, you're going to want things that buff stamina and movement speed. Okay, so on and so on. So you don't have to spend forever crafting all this stuff. Just go in, craft what you need, make sure your reserves are kind of stocked up and that you have everything what you need before you go out into the environment and all that kind of stuff. Okay. A couple other things. Here, let's just exit. Let's get out of camp. So again, you can always use the Ager Stone. That's what this is called, the Ager Stone, to go into camp, leave camp, whatever you want to do. Couple other things. This game does want you to experiment to a certain degree. Yes, there is 3 classes, Fighter, Ranger, Wizard. But I highly recommend kind of looking through all these skills because a lot of them are interchangeable. And it really doesn't lock you into a specific play style, okay? Probably the biggest lock-in thing that you can run into is with upgrading your items. So once you actually start upgrading and like really investing heavily into upgrading a specific type of weapon, that is probably the most important thing that determines your play style. So just be aware of that. I do wish it was a little bit more forgiving. In terms of that end of things, but I totally get it as well. Like there has to be some kind of investment into your play style and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Sorry, let me go back here. So if at any point in time you want to mix things up here, you felt you made a wrong decision, you can reset your points for very cheap. Okay, so it will actually reset the entire board. So in this case, right, I can reset the entire board for 500 gold. As you invest more points, you get higher levels, it'll get more expensive. Gold isn't super hard to come by or anything. I think I've only reset my board 1 time so far in about like 20 levels. So I don't think you're going to be probably playing around with this too much. You're probably going to figure out pretty early on what kind of play style you want to go with. It might vary a little bit as you get used to different weapons. Try out different weapons, try different things, see what works for you. But like I had mentioned, like being a ranger build, it does actually promote the use of both ranged weapons like guns or bows. It also has options for melee weapons, one-handed melee weapons in particular. Let's say you wanted to be a warrior, that's your 2-handed weapon, so on and so on. So I actually just kind of switch up between the 2 builds. It's also really nice just for variety, you know. I've got my fire swords here. I can cause fire damage. I can get in close when enemies are bum rushing me or whatever. I can pull this out, you know, start hacking away. If I'm going in from a distance, I can use this. I've got my shock pistol to build up some shock. I've got my ice, a little bit of magic, like I said, and boom, you're off to the races, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much that on that. And then, oh yeah, the other thing, just don't be afraid to switch up your gear as well. You're going to get a lot of amulets, rings, stuff like eventually this list is going to be huge. As you explore the world more, you're going to get a lot of interesting stuff here. Some of it you're never going to use, so you might be wanting to just sell that off. That might be worth that. But just don't be afraid to switch things up, right? If you're going into a big human encampment, for example, well, I've got an amulet here that reduces damage from Kith, which is like the humanoid type of enemies in the game, right? So maybe I'll throw that on before I engage with a large human encampment or whatever, right? As an example. So don't be afraid to switch things up in here. You'll also find items that you can just sell. Sell at any vendor for a high price. So just make sure you're going in and, again, visiting vendors at every single town. Vendors also will sell the best weapon, some of the best items in the game. So sell off your diamonds, you know, stock up on some good items, do that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and the other last thing I will mention, and there's probably other things I've forgotten, honestly, so please in the comments if I've forgotten to mention anything or you think there's some valuable piece of information that I've missed, please let us know. This is just like, I've just created a list here of what I think is things that like a beginner would want to know. But if there's things I've missed, definitely, mention it. There's probably, I'm not getting into advanced tips here or anything like that. But all of these tips, honestly, will pretty much get you through most of the game, to be honest with you. But the last thing is that I've also seen some discussion from people that certain, like, dialogue choices and stuff like that doesn't really lead you to different outcomes. That is completely false. I challenge you to experiment around with it if you want to do a little bit of save scumming and see what outcomes might change. Like, you could literally miss out on entire quest chains because you didn't answer NPCs the right way. There's at least 3 major events that have occurred in my playthrough that could have gone completely differently, like big events that affected a large number of NPCs and stuff like that. So just be aware of that your choices and your dialogue decisions absolutely 100% do matter. If you're seeing any reviewers say that it doesn't matter, there's no consequences for your actions, that is completely wrong. That's completely wrong, and they either haven't experimented with it, they haven't done enough of the side quests, maybe they just didn't even realize. Like, there's actually a lot of cases in this game where you don't actually realize that choosing a particular dialogue option sets you down a particular path, and I think that's kind of I think that's fun because you're going to get a lot of people with a lot of different outcomes and stuff, and I guarantee you, give it a little bit of time after this game comes out, and you're going to get a lot of people talking about stuff that they ended up finding out in the game, or something happened in their playthrough that they weren't expecting that nobody else saw. Like, that's going to come up 100%. I can tell you, it's already happened to me in like I say, a few instances where I was like, oh wait, I should have done this, or I could have done that, or I did do this, and it led to that event happening. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of like my beginning guide for it. Just go. Have fun, enjoy the game at your own pace, be flexible, and I think if you go into this game with the right mindset, you're going to have a great time. So thanks for watching.